How many of the people in this room have ever wakeboarded before or even heard of the sport? For the few of you that have wakeboarded before, you know how hard it is and how long it takes to get good at, and that's why I think that it should be considered to be put in the next Summer Olympics. Hi everybody, my name is Hunter Till, and the reason I chose this topic and have the authority to talk about it is because I myself am a wakeboarder, and I actually am on the Wake Devils wakeboarding team here at ASU. I've also done a lot of research and searched around for reasoning to help back up my statement. I feel like most of you have at least watched the Olympics before and can see how crazy all the sports and athletes can really be. This is the exact reason that you should agree with me at the end of this, because the tricks that a professional wakeboarder can do will absolutely blow your mind. Wakeboarding should be included in the next Summer Olympics just because of the skill and practice required to be a professional and compete in the sport. I'm going to start by comparing wakeboarding to snowboarding and show how snowboarding is in the Olympics. Then I will show how popular the sport is becoming and how it has the fan base to do really well in the Olympics and get all of the viewers. How many of you know what snowboarding is? I'm guessing most of you. It's very similar to wakeboarding, but there's obviously one main aspect, and that's one's done in water and one's done on snow. Wakeboarding and snowboarding are super similar sports in a lot of aspects, even though they're also extremely different. In one article from airhead.com, they go over all the similarities and differences of the two sports. They both require expert level balance and coordination, because if you lean too far one way, you're going to end up taking a pretty hard fall and it's going to hurt. Another similarity are the bindings or boots. As found from Monster Tower blog, the bindings that you put on a snowboard and a wakeboard are almost identical. They have the same bindings and boots you strap in. The only main difference is that one's meant to get wet and your feet to slide in and out, and the other one's meant for snow and to keep your feet warm and making sure you're secured in the boots. This is not the only reasons that make the sport super similar. I'm trying to show the type of equipment needed for both and the skill required to compete in either sport. Snowboarding has been in the Olympics since 1998, yet wakeboarding has only really been considered within the last few years, even though both sports were made around the same time in around the 80s and late 70s. Now that you know a little bit about either sport and the similarities between the two, let me tell you why wakeboarding should be added to the Olympics. Wakeboarding should be brought into the next Summer Olympics because, as talked about in an article from iwwf.sport, wakeboarding was considered to be entered in the Olympics but then got voted out. This was mainly because the amount of sports that were trying to be added in, there was around 8, and how popular each of them are. Even though wakeboarding is a super popular sport, it's still growing, and a lot of the fan base is starting to come up nowadays, and more kids are starting to compete, and colleges are even introducing the sport into sports teams like we have here at ASU. Another reason why it should do so well is because the amount of professional snowboarders that also wakeboard in the summertime, because you're going to go snowboarding in the winter and wakeboarding in the summer, and it's vice versa for either sport. This would bring in a lot of athletes that are already ready to compete right away just because of the skills they have in snowboarding. One of the main reasons that that the sport should be allowed in the Olympics is the multiple events that can be competed in. There's park boarding and boat boarding. As you saw in my first slide, one you're getting towed behind a boat, the other you're getting pulled behind a cable and going through parks with ramps and rails. And when you look at a snowboard park and a wakeboard park, they're super similar in how they're set up. All the ramps are almost the same thing, and the rails are super similar because you have to have a board go across the rail and slide and not break. So that brings in how the boards are built and how the rails are built, and they can go together and work super well. According to Groove Water Sports, this is where I found that, you can take some snowboard ramps and snowboard rails and use them in a wakeboard park as long as they can float. Wakeboarding is a very fast-growing sport and is popular and is starting to grow and get brought into youth and kids are getting really good at it at a really young age, and it really blows my mind. So to sum it all up, wakeboarding would be a very good sport to add into the Olympics within the next few years. This is partly because of how similar it is with snowboarding and the amount of people that snowboard that also wakeboard, and vice versa, and how well they could work in either field. Snowboarding also will bring a fan base to wakeboarding because it's such a similar sport, and when snowboarding's not happening in the Summer Olympics, people will watch wakeboarding and be like, hey, those are kind of the same sport, and a lot of the same tricks are happening. So within the next few Summer Olympics, wakeboarding needs to be pushed into the consideration of what sports are going to be entered into the Olympics. And this can happen by more people starting to support it and help make it more popular and help the sport really grow itself. So I hope by the end of this speech, you're inclined to now go out, learn a little bit more about wakeboarding, help it grow. So within the next few Summer Olympic years, we actually can maybe see the sport being competed in, and you guys can maybe even see me if I ever get that good enough to compete professionally. Thank you.